Hi, welcome to our team's eCheckup to Go at UF midterm presentation for the preliminary evaluation design.
Starting with the history of eCheckup to Go, it was developed in 2003 as a web-based, evidence-based alcohol intervention for college students. This was to help them self-assess drinking habits, receive personalized feedback, and adopt harm reduction strategies. It was implemented at the University of Florida around 2022 as a program for students to help reduce risky alcohol use. Due to drinking being an issue on college campuses, eCheckup to Go was implemented to reduce alcohol consumption and related harm associated with it. Excessive alcohol consumption has led to a decrease in academic performance and an increase in mental health issues and public safety issues on college campuses. When looking at national, state, and local data, we can all see it being relevant to the purpose of eCheckup to Go and the issue presented. Starting with national data, 40% of US undergrad students reported binge drinking, and 18% reported missing class due to alcohol use. Specifically at UF, 56.4% of students consumed alcohol within the last 2 weeks. The interest in the evaluation of eCheckup to Go has been expressed by multiple stakeholders, such as Dr. Sky Leone, the student body, and other UF staff. Another major stakeholder would be the Dean of Students, who may also find interest in this due to seeing if the program is truly reducing alcohol use on the UF campus. When looking at the target population for this evaluation, it is going to be for the first-year undergrad students at the University of Florida. The freshman class that have just come in for the class of 2029 is approximately 18,169 students, showing a large demographic that this will be used for. The first-year students are at a greater risk of binge drinking and peer influence, then leading to health and academic issues. Due to the transition period and having more freedom, this shows that the freshman students are at a greater risk of alcohol use. This program will serve the community of the University of Florida, with the main target population being freshman students, but will also be able to be available for the whole school, as this program can aid all students at the university. It can be through both Gatorwell and through the Wellness and Counseling Center at UF. The setting that it will be delivered will be online through UF's orientation platform as a mandatory web-based assessment during the freshman orientation. It will be overseen by Health Promotion Education, Gatorwell, and the Counseling and Wellness staff. This program can be done via the web or a mobile device for convenience and the privacy for the students that are going to be utilizing this program. The program goals of eCheckup to Go are reduce risky alcohol consumption among UF students, increase awareness of alcohol-related risks, encourage use of campus support resources, and foster sustained harm reduction behaviors. The program objectives are require all incoming freshmen to complete eCheckup to Go during orientation, provide personalized feedback reports comparing self-use to peer norms, refer high-risk students to Gatorwell or the Counseling and Wellness Center to better health and academic outcomes, and monitor outcomes through UF and NCHA data to establish eCheckup to Go is both efficient and effective for its students.
Our logic model outlines the flow from inputs like trained staff, partnerships, and funding to activities such as implementing eCheckup to Go during orientation and providing personalized feedback. These lead to outputs like full freshman participation and increased awareness, which ultimately result in long-term outcomes like reduced alcohol use, improved student health, and a safer UF campus.
When looking at previous evaluations in support of eCheckup to Go, early trials found reduction in drinking frequency and consequences among college students when using a web-based intervention. So whether that's eCheckup to Go, Alcohol EDU, or even Basics, this shows promise for the use at other universities. An evaluation of eCheckup to Go led to lower alcohol consumption for students, which was also found in a study done in 2021. eCheckup to Go showed effectiveness among Greek affiliate students with the use of protective behavior strategies. Whether these strategies were taken before, during, or after alcohol exposure, they were still participating in those protective behavior strategies. Both Alcohol EDU and eCheckup to Go showed promising results with short-term success, but most of the peer-reviewed articles and other evaluations did recommend having a longer follow-up period. When looking at why this will be a successful implementation, we are going to have mandatory participation, which will ensure high completion rates and strong data collection. It's going to be accessible format, so students can do it wherever, whenever. We also have strong stakeholder support, and there is evidence-based format, previously discussed in the previous valuations, to be able to show that eCheckup to Go is effective and efficient on the UF campus.
Let's talk about program evaluability. What's the implementation stage of this program? It is in the full implementation stage. The eCheckup to Go was implemented 1 year ago, around fall of 2024, as a mandatory program for all incoming freshmen. Optional follow-ups are offered at 30 and 60 days post-completion. Type of evaluation. To date, only completion counts and optional satisfaction surveys have been collected. We plan to implement a summative effectiveness evaluation to see if the program effectively engaged first-year students and whether there were any changes in their alcohol use, knowledge, or beliefs after completing the program. Evaluation questions. We have two types. First, we have the process evaluation questions, then we have the outcome evaluation questions. Let's go over the process evaluation. First, we would like to assess to what extent are UF freshmen engaging with the eCheckup to Go assessment. Also, we want to assess to what extent the orientation staff feel knowledgeable and equipped to lead the eCheckup to Go session at freshman orientation. Now let's go over our outcome evaluation questions. First, we would like to assess to what extent does participation in the eCheckup to Go program increase freshman students' knowledge about their personal drinking patterns and perceived risk when compared to their baseline. Also, we would like to assess to what extent does participation in the eCheckup to Go program reduce risky drinking behaviors and alcohol-related conduct violations at the 3rd-month and 6-month follow-up. Evaluation plan designs. Let's talk about the process evaluation. For our first question, to what extent are UF freshmen engaging with the eCheckup to Go assessment? For this question, we would like to implement a post-test observational design. Strengths and limitations. Some of the limitations of this design is that it's not very rigorous, due to not being able to detect change over time or conclude causation, since it lacks control and comparison group. The strength is that it's quick, cost-effective, and accessible. This design allows us to administer post-intervention surveys to assess students' acceptance of the program, use of the program's external resources, and barriers to completion. It also allows us to analyze eCheckup to Go completion records to measure overall participation rates.
In terms of process evaluation, we'll also conduct a post-test observational design to assess the question, to what extent do orientation staff feel knowledgeable and equipped to lead the eCheckup to Go session at freshman orientation? Strengths of this design are that it is a quick and inexpensive method of getting feedback from staff, and a limitation is that staff members may exhibit desirability bias in their responses. The approach answers the question because it allows for us to gather feedback about the training that orientation staff receive when it comes to leading the session. It also allows for us to get feedback on the time allocated for the session, staff confidence in helping students navigate the eCheckup to Go assessment, and also follow-ups and things like that. And overall, it helps us just track program fidelity. In terms of outcome evaluation, to answer the question, to what extent does participation increase freshman students' knowledge about their personal drinking patterns and perceived risks when compared to baseline, we'll conduct a pre-test, post-test, single-sample observational design. Strengths of this are that it assesses change over time and allows for change to be attributed to the program, and limitation is that comparison is going to be to baseline data and not an alternative intervention. And we chose to do this because we want to administer the eCheckup to Go program to all freshmen of an incoming class, and other limitations are also self-reported data and desirability bias in student responses. In terms of how the approach answers the question, it allows for us to administer pre and post surveys to evaluate changes in students' knowledge about their personal drinking patterns and perceived risks. In terms of the second question, to what extent does participation in the eCheckup to Go program reduce risky drinking behaviors and alcohol-related conduct violations? At the 3-month and 6-month follow-up, we'll conduct a quasi-experimental interrupted time series design. Strengths of this is that it allows us to track change over time, and a limitation is that comparison is going to be to past graduating classes, and so causality can't be determined. History bias may exist for different graduating classes, as well as self-reported bias and desirability bias. In terms of how the approach answers the question, we'll have students complete 3-month and 6-month follow-up surveys to assess changes in frequency of risky drinking and alcohol-related conduct violations. And then we'll also compare current freshman drinking behaviors and self-reports of conduct violations with previous cohorts using existing Gatorwell and UFPD data. In terms of resources for implementation, general resources for both process and outcome evaluation include Qualtrics Access. The eval team will get access 6 months prior to the launch of the program. Orientation staff will be trained to help students navigate the program, and implementation staff will train orientation staff 1 to 2 months prior to freshman orientation. UF technical support and meetings with stakeholders will also be super important in this stage. Specific to process evaluation, we will access orientation session leaders' emails by contacting UF Preview, and then program usage analytics will also be super important from eCheckup to Go. And specific to outcome evaluation, we will use electronic verification of completion data from eCheckup to Go to contact students for the 3-month and 6-month follow-ups, and the evaluation team will be in charge of this whole process and sending invites 2 weeks prior to each follow-up window. UF-related alcohol-related survey data from Gatorwell and UFPD will be super important to implement the evaluation plan as well.
So now we'll be discussing some of the challenges and limitations we anticipate as we move forward with evaluating the eCheckup to Go program at the University of Florida. One of our main primary challenges involves data availability. While the eCheckup to Go platform collects completion data, there are limited mechanisms for the ongoing follow-up or long-term outcome tracking. Since the 30-day and 60-day follow-up surveys are optional, we may experience some incomplete or inconsistent data here, which can make it difficult to assess some sustained behavior change. Another challenge is access to our target population. Although all freshmen complete the initial program during orientation, voluntary follow-up participation may be low. This could limit the ability to evaluate longer-term outcomes. From a resource perspective, there are also staffing and capacity concerns. The Health Education Department has limited staff to handle data collection and analysis, and orientation or counseling staff may already be managing other responsibilities. Additionally, more expertise in data management and evaluation methods would definitely strengthen the process here. To address these challenges, additional support may be needed, such as IRB approval for data access, funding for program licensing, and potentially a dedicated graduate assistant or data analyst to oversee the evaluation tasks. As for the limitations of the current plan, we know that much of our data will be self-reported, which introduces some potential bias. Maintaining student anonymity also makes it difficult to track changes over time. Finally, because this is a new implementation at UF, there are also limited baseline data to compare against. So, to overcome these barriers, we've identified several alternative strategies that may enhance the evaluation process. One option is using a mixed methods approach, combining quantitative survey data with qualitative interviews. This would help us better understand student perceptions and engagement with the program. We could also incentivize follow-up participation, offering small rewards like bookstore vouchers or wellness points to increase response rates. Another idea is to integrate data systems, connecting eCheckup to Go outcomes with information from Gatorwell or the Counseling and Wellness Center to track referrals and engagement. Additionally, a comparison group design might be useful. For example, comparing freshmen who completed the program to upperclassmen who voluntarily participated. These approaches would especially be valuable if follow-up participation rates are low or if stakeholders face time or resource constraints. Finally, we still have several outstanding questions to work with. We need to clarify what data sharing agreements are required between UF and the eCheckup to Go developers. We also need to determine how to balance anonymity with longitudinal tracking, and which evaluation tools will best measure outcomes such as knowledge, attitudes, and behavior change. We're also considering how to best communicate our findings to stakeholders, including the Dean of Students, health education staff, and funders, to support continuous program improvement. Overall, while there are challenges ahead, the stronger stakeholder support, evidence base, and accessibility of eCheckup to Go position it well for a meaningful and practical evaluation at UF. Here we have our references, and our references are also continued on the following page.